What's up guys, Trey here with AmericanMuscle.com, and today we're going to be checking out this MP Concepts GT CS style rear spoiler in gloss black, designed to fit 2010 to 2014 Mustangs. This spoiler is perfect for Mustang owners who want to enhance their car's rear end appearance with an aggressive style that's sleek and adds some downforce at higher speeds with this spoiler that's inspired by the GT California Special. This MP Concepts rear spoiler offers a dramatic improvement for your Mustang's aesthetic with a bold and aggressive design. It's in gloss black finish, which provides a sharp, clean look that complements any Mustang's paint color, making it an excellent addition for those of you looking for your ride to stand out. This spoiler not only looks good, but it's also functional, improving aerodynamics by providing additional downforce at those higher speeds, which helps enhance stability and handling. Its lightweight construction ensures it doesn't add any unnecessary weight to your vehicle, maintaining performance benefits of a rear spoiler. This is going to be constructed from high-quality ABS plastic. The spoiler is built for durability and resistance to wear. The gloss black finish is smooth and UV resistant, protecting against fading and weather-related damage. Designed as a direct fit, it ensures precise fitment and a seamless look once it's installed. Now, as far as pricing goes on this rear spoiler, it's going to come in right around that mid $200 price point, so it's going to be an affordable upgrade for both functionality and style when you compare it to those other options on the market. This install process is going to be very straightforward. It's going to utilize your Mustang's existing mounting points for a secure and clean fit, but you will need to add 4 additional holes for an even more secure attachment. The spoiler includes all the necessary hardware for the installation, so on our difficulty meter, this has come in at a solid 2 out of 3 wrenches, and it should take you about 2 hours to complete with just basic tools. Now let's check out an install video from one of our American Muscle customers and see exactly how this goes on your ride.
All right, so here's a collection of the tools that I used for this install. First thing is going to be this. This was the little pry tool that I used to get off the clips on the underside of the underside of the deck lid. This is the deburring tool that I use to kind of smooth out the edges on the holes that I drilled. This is a pair of cutters. I just used this in a couple of different places. I mean, I didn't really use it for the install. I did use it to cut off the tip on the silicone that I had. Not really a requirement. So masking tape, you're going to need a lot of masking tape, so make sure to have plenty of that on hand. These shears, I did use a little bit to cut away some of the metal where I was unable to get a drill bit into the bottom side of the deck lid. I think these are actually garden shears, but you can use any shear that might work a little bit better for metal. This is the center punch that I used. You will need one of those for sure. Needle nose pliers always kind of help whenever you might drop something into a hole, but I didn't use them for the actual installation. They were just kind of a helper tool. Flashlight, of course, always helps. And the touch-up paint, I would recommend it. You don't really have to use it. I had 2 different drills. You can probably use the same drill. For me, it was just a little more convenient to switch between the 2 of them. You will need, if you use my method, you will need some of these step bits. You can get a set of these for pretty cheap on Amazon or anywhere else, really. You will need step bits for sure. Hole saw. If you decide to use the method I did, which was drilling out those big holes on the underside of the deck lid. Again, this is a 1-inch metal hole saw. You can probably use any size you prefer. Probably anything 3/4 or larger would work to get to fit the washers in. However, if you don't use my method for the bottom of the deck lid, just a 1/4-inch drill bit will be all you need if you go and get some longer hardware from that matches the hardware that comes with the spoiler. I used an assortment of drill bits. I broke a couple of them. Most of them were 1/4 of an inch. I recommend you get a nice set of titanium or better drill bits, and just have them ready on hand. Silicone, again, not a requirement, but just something I wanted to use to make sure that no water leaks in through the holes that we drilled. You will need probably a couple of different screwdrivers. Does not matter if they have magnetic tips because the screws are not magnetic, but I found it helpful to have a couple of different sizes of screwdrivers. And of course, you'll need a measuring tape in order to make sure that you get the spoiler centered properly. That is a spread of all the tools I use for this install. All right, so first thing I did before we start installing the wing is I made sure that the surface is nice and clean where it's going to mount to. I like to keep a coat of wax on my car, so I want to make sure that the adhesives that the post for the spoiler, where it sticks to the trunk, I wanted to make sure that it didn't get interrupted by the wax. So what I did in order to prevent that was I took a clay bar, a detailing clay bar, just like this one, and I put some clay lube on the surface here and clayed that all off. That's going to remove the wax. What you can also do if you don't have a clay bar, or if you want to do it a little faster, is you can take a microfiber rag, put some rubbing alcohol on it, 50-50 water and alcohol, and just wipe it down on the back part of the deck lid here where the spoiler is going to mount. Next up, we're going to go inside and we're going to remove this panel on the trunk. So the first thing we need to do, first actual step of the install, is we're going to remove these buttons here that hold the liner to the deck lid. I believe the instructions said there were 13 of them, so let's go ahead and get them off. I'm going to use this tool here, this little, Dad, do you know what this tool's called? I don't know. This little forked tool here to pry these off. You could probably use a screwdriver if you wanted, or just another regular trim tool, but this seems to be the tool for the job, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. Alright, that seems to be all of them. So this is the trunk release handle here. There's a slit cut in the liner. I'm going to go ahead and just tuck that up through that slit, and then this comes right off. Okay, now the next part of the instructions are pretty much about removing the factory wing. Obviously mine does not have a factory wing, so I'm not going to be doing that step. But if yours does have a factory wing, there will be nuts here and here that you need to remove, as well as a couple of others. If you have a different model, I think the GTs also have nuts here and here that need to be removed, and those are under these little caps right here, which I'm going to go ahead and remove right now anyway, because I believe there will be bolts coming through underneath these caps. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these off. These are pretty tight. They're not rubber like you'd think they would be. They're actually plastic. So I am damaging mine a little bit by doing this. I'm not too concerned about it, but they do come off just like that, except for the one that flew over by the tool bench. So once these are off, and if you have your factory wing, once you get the nuts off on here, your factory wing will come off. And then you'll need to work on actually removing the adhesive from the top of the deck lid, which again, I don't have to do, but that will be the next step for those of you with a factory wing. All right, so the next step is going to be actually assembling the wing itself. So I'm just going to take a second and show what the kit actually comes with that we're going to be putting on the wing. So these are the standoffs. This is the GTCS style wing. So it's got these posts that get mounted to the wing, and that's what then gets mounted to the deck lid. So we have those. It also comes with these adhesive pads, which I assume are going to help hold the wing to the deck lid, and hopefully also act as a weather sealant to keep water out of the holes where it's mounted to the deck lid. And these get put directly on the bottoms of these standoffs. We also have 2 hardware kits. One set is to actually bolt the standoffs to the wing. One set is to bolt it to the deck lid. We have these strips, which are going to come into play later. These are for alignment of the spoiler, so that you can drill your holes where they need to go. And then we have some additional high temperature foam tape. Now, to be perfectly honest, I don't know what this is for. This isn't mentioned anywhere in the instructions. I'm gonna take some time and try and figure out where this is supposed to go when we actually get the spoiler on. I can't imagine that we need it for the bottoms of these standoffs. That's what we have these for. Maybe this goes on where you actually mount the spoiler to the standoffs. I'm not quite sure right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and rearrange some of this, and then we'll start putting the spoiler together. Okay, so I've set the spoiler out on top of the factory padding that it came with when it shipped, just to keep it nice and safe. All right, so you can see that on each of the standoffs there is a groove right here that lines up with the grooves, or the outcroppings rather, on the spoiler. And they're pretty different. So it's going to be hard to really mix up which one goes where. So this one clearly goes there, or maybe not so clearly on the end. That one goes there. This one goes here. This one here. That one goes right there, and this one goes right there. So. One problem that I noticed right away is that the holes where the screws go into to secure the standoffs to the spoiler are fairly deep. So it might take a couple of tries to get the screw in there without it falling inside of the standoff. Fortunately, these are hollow, and if that does happen, it's going to be pretty easy to get the screw out. But I'm going to go ahead and pour out the hardware here. I'm going to grab a magnetic screwdriver. Okay, I've got a magnetic screwdriver. I'm not entirely sure this one is long enough. We're going to find out in a moment. I did notice also that the screws are not magnetic. So, magnetic screwdriver doesn't actually help. But we're going to go ahead and feed some washers onto these screws. And then we're going to go about getting them on the wing. Magnetic screws would have been nice. Got one of them in. Get that started, and then drop the other one in. The back one is more difficult because it's deeper. That it's further for the screw to go, and being that the screws aren't magnetic, you're going to have some difficulty getting this screw started. Just like I am. So I dropped it, like I said, inside of the standoff. So. Get those back out. Alright, I'm going to try making a loop of some masking tape here and just put that on the end of my screwdriver. Alright, so I played around with the masking tape trick a little bit. What I ended up doing was something like this, so that the masking tape does not just come off in the hole along with the screw, and the washer doesn't have a tendency to fall off of the screw either. So we're going to give this a shot, see if this works. Okay. Got it threaded. And one thing I noticed as well that you're probably going to want to make note of, these screws are very tight when they screw into the hole on the other side of the spoiler. I believe that's by design, so don't freak out. If you think you're cross-threading it, you're most likely not. Okay. All right, I've got both screws in their mounting holes. I'm going to go ahead and tighten these down. And again, very tight. I'm going to use a drill to get these in here because I believe I cross-threaded the back screw. I don't recommend doing this. Feed it in by hand if you can. But I don't feel like getting out a tap and die to fix the threads here, so I'm gonna give this a shot. All right, that's tight. So that's one of the standoffs installed. Again, I don't recommend using a drill. That was something that I did because I made a mistake. If you take your time, you probably won't cross-thread it like I did. You won't have to basically jam it in there with a drill. So we're gonna go ahead and get the other standoffs on. Hopefully these ones are a little easier, go a little better, but we'll see here in just a couple of minutes. Still a little bit of give on this. I'm going to see if I can get them a little bit tighter. All right, and that one, like I thought would be, was much easier because we took a second to feed in the screws and ream out the paint before we mounted this. That one went on really easy. So I do recommend, whether or not you use a drill, I do recommend driving the screw in without the piece on it first. Just to clear off that paint, kind of loosen up the threads a little bit. Still holds plenty tight, but way easier to screw in. And I didn't cross-thread anything this time, so I would use that method if at all possible. All right, so I have flipped the wing around just to give you a little bit better of a view of what I'm doing. I haven't done anything else. I've just got these two standoffs on. I just wanted a better view of the two on this side. So now everything is, of course, the reverse of what we were looking at before. So, so we're going to go ahead and get started on these ones here now. Okay, so again, we've got these two standoffs here. Just wanted to place them down. So same thing as before. I'm going to take a little piece of tape, wrap it around the screwdriver like this, put the screw on the end of the driver as well as the washer, and then just kind of barely wrap the tape around the washer, or else the washer will fall off when you try to feed the screw in. But just enough so that you can actually get the screwdriver free of the washer when you pull it back out. We don't want the tape to stick to the washer too much, or we'll have problems. We don't want to leave the masking tape down inside of there or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get this one started. And I'm kind of holding, what I'm doing to make sure that I don't cross thread it this time is I'm actually, once I get the screw into the hole of the nut, I'm actually lifting up the standoff a little bit and then feeding in the screw. It kind of gives me a little more confidence that it's not being cross-threaded. Not required, but that's just how I'm doing it. And these are, I will mention, very easy to cross-thread because the nut, even though I drove in the screw beforehand, it's still a little tight. There's still a little bit of paint down there, so yeah, just be careful when you put these in. I also have read about situations where somebody had this, and I think it was about this wing specifically, where somebody had tightened down these screws too hard and then actually broken the nut underneath, which, looking at it, does look like that could possibly happen. So you want to be really careful when you're putting these on, and it's probably going to be the same story when you get to actually bolting it to the deck lid. So we'll just take a little bit of extra time, be extra careful, make sure that we get everything secured without breaking anything, which If you've done any car modification in the past, you'll know if you get something done without breaking anything, that's a win. Right, Dad? So let's go ahead and get these in. And even though they're still a little tight, these are going in much easier than the first one I put on. So I will reiterate again, the way to do this is to clean out the nut first by driving the screw home without the standoff attached. I will credit that idea to my dad, who's sitting behind me. Good idea, very good idea. I suppose you could also take, if you have a brush drill bit, like a copper brush for your drill, you could probably clean the nut out like that too, but we don't have anything like that, so we just use the screw to do that job for us. Now these feel like they're tight, and they are, so that one's on. So last one, I'm gonna do the same thing with the tape. That around the end of the driver. Put our screw on there and our washer. Line up the hole. Now this one, so this is interesting. Let me get a light. Do you have a flashlight? Yeah, we're gonna have to, okay. So the issue that we've got here is that this hole right here is actually a little bit off center from where the nut is on the top of the wing. And I did see this mentioned in a different video that I watched as well, so I think it's highly likely that you'll run into this situation. So what we're gonna do to fix that, it should be pretty easy. I'm actually gonna just drill out this hole a little bit more than it already is, and that should give us the extra leeway we need to get this on there. So it needs to be drilled out on this side toward the outer bow. I'm going to put that down there, and I'm going to grab let's use a step bit for this, since I'm going to be using the step bits later on anyway. So I am going to go ahead and move the wing away while I do this. I don't want to risk damaging the wing at all. So I'm going to move the whole thing, including the packaging material that I'm using to keep it safe. Just going to move this aside for a moment. And I still don't want to scratch the standoff here, so I'm just going to use this other piece of foam here to keep it safe while I do this part. So again, I've got a drill with a step bit. This is just a generic step bit. All I'm going to do is I'm going to drill out this hole a little bit wider than it was before, and it's this hole right here. Again, it's this top hole opposite the side where this groove is that fits onto the wing. This hole right here is the one I'm going to be drilling out. So I'm just going to go 1 or 2 steps up on this bit here. So I'm just going to take this I'm going to bring the wing back over here and see if that's enough, or if I need to go up another step. So let's lay this back down where it goes. I'm gonna grab my flashlight, and it's still a little bit off. So I'm gonna go up. Maybe 2 more steps on the step bit. So this time I'll just go ahead and cover this up so I don't have to keep moving it around. Okay, that's 2 steps on the drill bit. Just for reference, I reamed that out to approximately 5/8 of an inch, which it doesn't need to really be that large, but we're just trying to get it to line up with the nut on the wing. So I'm just shaking out some of the little plastic pieces here. Maybe you want to, when you're doing this, maybe you want to just use a regular drill bit and just ream it out to the side that it needs to be larger on. I figured the step bit, I already had them set aside, so I figured that would be easier. All right, so let's see if this lines up. And it does, so that's good to go. Should be able to thread those screws in now. That's one. I'm gonna go ahead and thread in the screw. Take the tape off the driver and screw them right home. Okay, that's nice and tight. So the next thing we're going to do, I think is, let me refer to the instructions. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our adhesive pads on each of the standoffs. Now, referring to the instructions, it looks like the part where the red side of the pad is where it actually meets the standoff. And these are all shaped to match each standoff just like that. And they also have holes all pre-cut in them. So what I'm actually going to do first is just pop out those pieces of the pad at the holes, just get them ready to install. Okay, we're going to install these pads. However, first, my dad reminded me that we have the exact same nuts on the bottom where it actually bolts to the deck lid as we did bolting them to the spoiler. So what I'm going to do is actually unpackage the other set of hardware. And I'm going to do the same thing I did as I did on the spoiler. I'm going to just drive the bolts home, clean up those threads. That way I'm not struggling to get them threaded once I'm actually ready to put the spoiler on the deck lid. So I'm just going to do exactly that. And right away, these ones don't actually feel as tight, so it's possible that these ones may not be that difficult. Perhaps these ones weren't as thoroughly covered in paint as the ones that were on the spoiler, which would make sense, but let's do this anyway, just to make sure. And I'm just switching batteries here. 2 drills, 1 battery. These are pretty tight once you get them past the first couple threads. So it's, I think, good that we're doing this. There you go. Wear gloves. Same thing over here. So now all the bolt holes are reamed out. What I'm going to do, don't know if this is required, I'm going to grab a microfiber towel with a little bit of cleaning solution. I'm just going to use some generic all-purpose cleaning solution for this. You could maybe use rubbing alcohol. From a detailing perspective, I would probably prefer to use rubbing alcohol, but I don't have any on me at the moment. So I'm gonna just use some cleaning solution, clean these off so that we have a nice clean surface for the pads to stick to. So Dad does have some rubbing alcohol, so we're going to wait on him to grab that. And then I'm gonna grab my microfiber I was using before. Just gonna wipe this down a little bit. It's probably clean enough already to just stick the pad on, to be perfectly honest, but I've spent a lot of my time detailing and touching up paint, and I just feel that it's best practice to use adhesives on a clean surface. So personal preference, by no means required. It's not in the instructions, to be clear, but yeah, still something I'm going to do. Okay. Just have some rubbing alcohol here. I would recommend using a dilute solution, 50-50, but since this is just plain plastic, I'm just gonna go ahead and get it done with pure rubbing alcohol. I've just got a little dab there on my microfiber, and I'm just gonna wipe that down. Get a nice clean surface to mount these pads on. I don't know how much these pads are really gonna be doing, considering you bolt it down, but you know, better I think to include them anyhow. So again, I think according to the instructions, the red side of the pad is the part that is meant to contact the standoffs. So being that each pad is formed differently, let me just dry this off a little bit. Like I said, each pad is formed differently, so this one is clearly meant for this one, and this one is not the correct one for there. It's going to be this one, I think. Yes, okay. All right, so I'm going to separate the red side of the pad. Now, there's no ridge or anything to line this pad up with. You kind of have to just do your best. But there are, of course, the bolt holes to line it up with. So that makes it a little bit easier. Just line it up with the bolt holes. And there we have it. That one's on. And we're going to leave this part of the pad on because we're going to need to set the spoiler on the deck lid to get it centered in a couple of minutes. So leave that back pad on for now. We're just separating the red side of the pad from the tape. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. And again, I'm going to find the spot on my towel where I had a little bit of alcohol. Just gonna wipe this down. Done with my microfiber for now. Toss that aside. And I'll note too, these pads, the actual sticky part of the pad, it's almost like a putty. It's not really tape. It's more of a, it's like it's malleable. It's got a little bit of give to it. So when you peel these off, just be careful not to deform the pad. Then it might not sit level with the deck lid. You know, butyl tape. Is that what it is? Yeah. Okay. Butyl tape. I hear is the term for what this is. So just be mindful of that. Don't deform it when you're peeling it off, the red part off. Right, that's on. All right. So all of the pads are now secure to the standoffs for the wing. So again, referring to the instructions. The next thing that we're going to do involves these strips that came with the kit. So these are going to help us align it on the deck lid. What we're first going to do is sort of like the pads. There's a little hole in the center of this tape here. I'm going to go ahead and just punch these out with a screwdriver. Those are all ready to go. So here's how this goes. The instructions say to line these up laterally like this. You get a better view from over here maybe. Line them up laterally like this with the hole, just like that. And then we're going to take there's a little bit, I don't know if you can see it here, but the center of the strip is just it's raised right here, and that's actually a little piece of tape. So we're going to peel that off, just like that. And we're going to just line this up with the hole right there. Press that down real good. We don't want that coming separated yet. Make sure that's nice and secure. And we're going to just repeat that for all 8 bolt holes. And I don't think the angle that you lay these on really matters that much. In fact, I might try laying a couple of these on diagonally. And I will show you why once we start mounting the spoiler on the deck lid. I'm going to give these a little bit of an angle, just like that. See how I have these ones lined up that way. The orientation of these, as far as I understand and as far as I can see from what I believe the installation is going to include, the angle of these does not really matter. In fact, now that I think of it, it might actually behoove you to install them as straight this direction as you can, because eventually these are going to be taped down, and you might actually be able to get a better, you might actually be able to get these more secure to the deck lid, having them a little bit more vertical. But again, I don't think it matters at the end of the day. It should be personal preference, however you want to do it. After you watch the rest of the video, you might have a different opinion on how these should be oriented, but the important part is that the center hole is lined up with the bolt hole on the standoff. All right, so I've got all 8 of these strips all pinned to the standoffs on the wing. The next thing we need to do is actually orient the wing on the deck lid. Okay, so back at it. I've got the masking tape here. I have cut out, this is just regular printer paper, cut about the same length as the original strips with a hole punch in the center. So what I'm going to do is the same exact thing, well, almost the same thing that we did with the original strips. I'm going to tear off just the smallest piece of masking tape. I don't want this to hold too tight to the paper. So I'm going to line that up with the holes and just put a little itty bitty piece of masking tape right here. In fact, I'm going to make it even smaller than this. I'm going to tear it into 2 pieces of about this size here. And I'm going to put 1 piece of the tape on either side of the hole. Okay, so I'm overlapping on the paper here as little as possible, because what's going to happen is if you overlap it too much, the tape is going to stick. We're going to have the same problem. So I want it just to be enough to hold. And this, again, this masking tape is the adhesive is very light. I don't think we're going to have the same problem this time, but I want to take as little chance as I can of this sticking to the backing paper on here again. And additionally, I'm going to do what I wanted to in the first place and mount these a little more diagonally like this. That way it's going to be easier to tape these sides down, and we won't have to reach under the wing as much to tape them down to the deck lid. So I'm just going to mount all of these. Out like that. And just to be clear, none of this is in the instructions. This is not part of the actual process. This is damage control for the process that didn't really go as planned. So not something you should really have to worry about if you're very careful. I clearly, as careful as I like to be, wasn't careful enough. So that there. All right, and on this final one over here, I still have 2 of the original strips left. I'm just going to use these ones. Okay, so I'm going to move the camera and we're going to do the exact same thing over again. All right, so second verse, same as the first. Make sure the strips don't get bent while we're laying it down. Okay, that's about like that. It's about where it needs to be. Okay, there's something needs to be way over that way. Hold on. Right there. Yeah. I'm gonna get my measuring tape. I'm gonna measure this again. This seems to be the most reliable point of measurement, so this is what I'm gonna use. That needs to move just a hair over that direction. Just the skinniest little hair. That should be fine. So that's 4 inches, which means this should be 4 inches, but I'm gonna measure it anyway. Actually, a little tiny bit my direction. That should be about it. Measure this again. So I'm measuring to the actual end of the red part, not to the rim on the gray, the paint, but to the actual edge of the red brake light there. And that is 4 inches exact. And that is actually a little off of 4 inches. I guess like that. That's 4 inches on either side, so that's centered. So these standoffs line up with the edge of the deck lid. These ones on the end are set back a little bit.
That's the way it's supposed to.
That's the way, yeah. Well, as far as I can tell, because these ones aren't contoured with the deck lid like the middle ones are. The middle ones have a hump in them where it lines up with the edge, the raised edge of the deck lid.
Okay, so that's where
Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be. So that is good. That is good. This is solid. So now these strips aren't as strong. They're just regular paper. So we need to, when we're taking this down, we need to be very careful that number one, we don't tear the strips when we lift the spoiler off. But also I noticed that the cardstock strips did a pretty good job of holding the spoiler in place while we taped everything down. I don't think these paper ones are going to do that same job. So we're going to just be very careful not to move the spoiler while we're doing our taping. And just like last time, I'm going to measure again once we get everything taped down. So again, just make sure your paper strips or the cardstock strips are laying down flat as possible, because especially now that they're no longer cardstock, we want to make sure that we are drilling the holes in the correct places. So if these strips are bent at all, or if they're not laying flat against the paint, when you lift off the spoiler, they're gonna get misplaced, and your holes are gonna be in the wrong place. So we're just taking extra care here to make sure everything is taped down as well as possible, and not to move anything during the process. And I just noticed that this wasn't this last standoff over here wasn't quite matched up with where the other one was on the other side, so I was just moving that a little bit. That moved. Oh, jeez. Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna have to do the same thing over again, because the masking tape didn't hold the strip to the spoiler in this one spot here, and actually in another spot. So we're going to do the same process again for the second time. That's fun. So I'm just removing the masking tape so we don't tear our new paper strips. And I'm going to take this back over to my workbench and fix the centering strips. All right. Third time's the charm, right? So, yeah, just make sure those aren't getting folded. Okay, let's center it again. And get it to the curvy part of the deck lid. Okay, now let's just measure. Hold on, before you take anything down. That's 4 inches. So this thing almost, centering isn't really a big deal. This thing, you can tell when it wants to set down in the right position. You can kind of feel it. So this thing, it wants to center itself pretty easily. I would worry more about doing this part right, because getting it aligned is not hard. It's not as hard as you would think it would be. Yeah, get as much tape on this as humanly possible, because I don't want to have to do this again. Hopefully you only have to do this one time. I wish the best for you. All right, so that, I think they're all taped down except for one right there. Under this part of the spoiler. Oh, it's kind of hard to do in the middle of the spoiler though. Oh yeah, we got one there too. So another thing I'm noticing too is actually the paper is behaving a little better than the cardstock, because the cardstock wants to bend and warp, but the paper sits down nice and flat. So I'm not advocating for using stuff that wasn't included in the kit, but I am. In my opinion, cut your own paper strips, put them on the standoffs with masking tape. I'm gonna make sure there's as much tape on here as we can get. So yeah, Dad, just cover it with tape. Put it everywhere. I'll clean up I'll probably need to clay the deck lid again after this, like I did beforehand, in order to get all the contamination off from the masking tape. All right, I think that's good. We've got this taped 50 ways, so now I'm gonna have Dad step over and help me take the spoiler off, hopefully for the last time, gentle as he possibly can. That's it. Yep, that's it. Perfect. Excellent. So I do want to mention something that happened over here. All right. This is what I was mentioning that you want to avoid. You see how these strips are raised in a couple of places? It's going to make it really hard to drill your holes in the correct place. Yeah, I would recommend when you're doing this, use more tape than I did, and just make sure that you don't get this bowing here that I did, because that's, if I have to guess, I might have to drill my holes a little bit wider than I would have had to if this had gone better. And that's something you're probably going to want to avoid. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, just get that tape as close to the hole as possible. The goal is to make sure that obviously these don't move when we're doing our drilling. All right, I think that's good. So let me reposition the camera. We're gonna get ready to do our drilling, the fun part. Okay, what we're gonna do now, I've got this is a center punch. This is a spring-loaded center punch. It'll drive a little bit better of a hole than a traditional center punch. I don't assume you have to use something like this. A normal center punch should work, but this one has a nice action to it that I like. So I'm gonna, in the centers of these holes where the paper strips are, I'm gonna go ahead and do a quick center punch. Same thing over here. All right, so I've got my hole center punched. Now what I'm going to do, this part also listen to the instructions. The instructions say to just take a 1/4-inch drill bit and go at it. That's not really the way I want to do this. So what I'm going to do is take a finer drill bit. So the holes are supposed to be a 1/4-inch for the bolt holes. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a finer drill bit and I'm going to drill a pilot hole in each one of these. And then instead of using just a 1/4-inch drill bit, I'm going to take that step bit that we were using earlier. This is actually a different step bit, but a step bit nonetheless. Once I get the pilot hole drilled, I'm going to take the step bit, and the step bit has different measurements on it right here. So this one's the 1/4-inch hole right here. How good can we see that? Right there, that's 1/4-inch. So I'm gonna put some masking tape here on this part of the drill bit, so that when I drill into the pilot hole, I can come up with a step bit to 1/4 inch and stop there without worrying about going any further than 1/4 inch. So let's go ahead and find a drill bit that's the finest point of this step bit. I'll let that refocus. You actually can't see the measurement on the finest point of the step bit. Get that to focus. So I'm gonna find a drill bit that just matches this part of the step bit. I don't know what size that'll be yet, but I'll find out and I'll let you know as soon as I do. All right, so this is the drill bit I've chosen to do my pilot holes with. This is 3/32. Camera won't even focus on it. Just an itty bitty little guy. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this in the drill. All right, got my drill bit mounted. Go ahead and make sure that chuck is nice and tight. I don't want that slipping when we go to drill. All right, here goes nothing. Do another one. That was the second layer I just drilled through there. All right, and you saw how I got through the first layer of metal, and then there was another stopping point. That is where the metal is double layered on the inside of the trunk, which I'll go into once we get past this part. But for now, I'm gonna go ahead and get that step bit that we have. So again, I've taped off the step bit at 1/4 inch. So that's gonna tell me where I need to stop when I'm drilling. Here goes nothing. So what's happening here is I'm actually hitting the second layer of metal. I might have to come back to this one and finish drilling it after we get this second layer of metal dug out from underneath. Yeah, I can do that. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna switch to a different step bit. This one's not quite as long, so, and then the 1/4 inch measurement is just a 1 notch down on here. So a little bit better because I'll be able to drill this hole all the way through without hitting the second layer of metal, which is the current problem that I'm having. And by doing that, it wants to displace the drill bit. So I'm gonna try it with this smaller one and see how that goes. All right, so again, I've got the new step bit taped off at 1/4 inch. See if it does any better. Wasn't much to do on that one. It was pretty much already done. So let's go to the next one. All right, that's all the top holes drilled. So what I'm gonna do is I don't wanna wipe off these metal shavings like that for fear of scratching the paint. I'm gonna grab a blower and just kind of clean that off so that we don't have to worry about scratching the paint with metal shavings. All right, now at this point we can go ahead and take these strips off. They've served their purpose. Going to be a lot of gunk to clean up when this is all over, but I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. And there's some more metal shavings under the tape, so I'm going to probably blow this off again once we get all the strips off. All right, strips are off. Let's blow it again. All right, I think I'm actually going to take this opportunity while the wing is still off to actually clean up the gunk from the masking tape, because it's going to be hard to get under the wing and clean that once it's on. So I left my microfiber in the trunk. What I was owing about was all the metal shavings that went down into the trunk just fell to the bottom of the hollow part here. So I guess those live there permanently. So just going to take again some rubbing alcohol and a microfiber. Just clean up the gunk from the masking tape. This is safe to work on paint. If you know anything about detailing, I wouldn't recommend making a habit of using rubbing alcohol on your paint, but it's not going to harm it once or twice for what we're doing right here. It will, however, take off any wax that you have. So if you do make a habit of waxing your car, you will have to reapply wax once this is over. Also, the instructions don't make any mention of cleaning the surface before installing the spoiler, but this is just something that I'm doing because I want it to stick permanently. I don't want the wax to cause any issues when we actually go in and adhere the spoiler to the deck lid. So, personal preference. Does not seem to be required per the instructions, but I'm doing it anyway. So that's pretty clean. I'm gonna wipe it off with the dry side. Those are some nice neat holes. Hopefully they're in the correct locations and my drill bit didn't walk when I was drilling the holes. If the drill bit did walk, let's say that we get the spoiler on there and the holes don't line up. If that does happen, what I'll probably do is go down another step on the step bit, and they'll be a little wider than they need to be, but I think it'll be okay. I guess we'll find out. All right, so one thing we're looking at here is we've got the holes drilled in the top of the deck lid. However, they don't line up with the factory holes. So we've got two of the holes right here. These are where the factory spoiler holes would be. Right here, and then we've got those holes. Those are fine. However, we've got a hole basically about here and about here that have no hole drilled in at all. And also over here on this side, this hole that we drilled in from the top doesn't quite line up with the factory hole here. Also, you'll notice this small hole right here, which was the second hole for this. There's one on each side like this. That's where I shoved the drill bit through the second layer of metal, like I was saying before, because there's also no hole there. So I have a hole drilled. What we're going to have to do is I'm going to take a different drill bit. This is, it doesn't have to be a certain size. We're just making a couple of basically pilot holes. This one happens to be 15/64. I need to drill a little bit deeper in on the rearward holes right here, in order to punch through the inside metal. I just want to go through and make sure that we know where to drill, because we're going to have to drill holes as well from the inside of the trunk lid to get through the second layer of metal, and we're going to have to ream them out enough to where we can actually get the bolt and the washer through to secure the spoiler. I am, you know what though, I'm actually not going to use, I'm going to use a slightly smaller drill bit for this. So this one is a 7/32. I'm going to go ahead and use this. It's a little dirty. I'm going to wipe it off first. All right, so to reiterate, this is just a standard drill bit. Mine happens to be 7/32. It doesn't have to be this size. This is just what I'm using. And this is really only applicable if you're using the step bit like I am, because if you had used a 1/4 inch drill bit to drill all the way through the deck lid, this wouldn't be a problem. But since I use the step bit, it is. So we're going to go ahead and just make sure that this drill bit makes it all the way through the second layer of metal here. And then there were a couple more. I'm gonna run this bit through all the holes except for these two, because these are the factory holes. I'm gonna run it through all of the all 6 of the other holes, just to make sure we have a nice even where we know where we can drill in from the backside to create access holes for the bolts. So I'm gonna basically do the same thing over again here. So that's all the drilling we need to do on top. Let's blow this off again. So again, what I was saying before, actually, you know what I'm gonna do? Scratch that. All right, so next step is I want to kind of clean these holes up a little bit. They're pretty rough around the edges here, and I don't like that. So what I've got here is a deburring tool. This part swivels. So we're gonna just stick this in the hole there and give it a little bit of a thrashing. That's gonna deburr the hole. Still a little bit of twisted metal here that this thing isn't gonna fix. Yeah, the countersink will fix that. So, you know, on second thought, let's save that for now. So again, with the deburring tool, I'm just gonna go around here. The holes are pretty smooth already, which is good, but I wanna make sure that they're nice and smooth. Scratch my paint there, don't do that. All right, I'm gonna blow that off again. And I did a number on my paint there. Fortunately, I think the wing is gonna cover that part up, so whatever. Okay, so now we have all of our holes drilled. Again, these are the factory holes. We've already got plenty of access to these bolt holes. Make sure those are nice and clean. So the problem we have to deal with now is that these holes here, which the drill bit that we just ran through made, they're not going to be obviously big enough for the screw to get in towards the top layer of the metal. So what we're going to do is I've got another step bit here. This is a big one. This one doesn't need to be a particular size. This just wants to be, I just want this to be big enough to make the hole larger so that we can fit the bolt and the washer into the hole here. And we're going to do this in 4 places: here, 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 and here. So this one is the factory hole, and you'll see this is just barely off center from where the factory hole is, which is unfortunate, but we're gonna do the same thing here. We might have to, this one is kind of cut out into the side of the hole. That one's gonna be a little difficult to try and do, but these ones should be pretty straightforward. So I'm gonna go ahead and mount this step bit in my drill and get to reaming these out. All right, so I've got my step bit mounted. Let's see what we can do. Let's see how that matches up with the washer. Not quite big enough, so we need to go one more step. I'm just going to check to see that the drill bit is not going to damage top. All right, this is down to 5/8 there. We're going to need to go wider though. And they do need to be a little bit wider, so let me see if I can find a drill bit that's going to serve our purposes.
Let me check this and I'll let you know.
I'm going to go up to 3/4 of an inch on this step bit, while making sure that the tip of this step bit fits through the top of the drill the hole that I drilled on the top of the deck lid. That way we don't really damage the top hole, but at the same time we're able to get the bottom hole here wide enough to actually fit the washer in. That should be big enough for the bolt. Let's see if the washer fits. Okay, that is just large enough. So for anyone watching, the access holes down here need to be 3/4 of an inch in order to actually fit the washer through. And that's going to be just enough room to get that washer through. So when we go to thread that bolt in, when we're a step later, you want to be real careful getting that in. All right, that one's out at 3/4. So I'm gonna take a second here and actually tape that off at 3/4 so that I can do the rest of the holes without doing guesswork. All right, I've got my step bit taped off at 3/4 of an inch. So as my dad was pointing out, it's going to be very difficult to actually get these holes up to that same size because with this step bit, if we went that far, we drill through the top of the deck lid. So that works here for these two holes, but it's not going to work over here on this side for these holes. I think for these ones, I don't think we're going to be able to use a step bit. It just won't work. And I don't have a drill bit that's 3/4 of an inch around. That would be a gigantic drill bit, and I don't have that. So what we're gonna have to do for these two holes and these two holes, we'll probably have to use a drill bit to get them as wide as we can, and then kind of wing it from there. So let's try and find the biggest drill bit I have. So this is a nice, sharp, brand new 1/2" drill bit. I'm gonna put this 1/2" drill bit in my chuck. All right, and very, very gingerly, we're gonna drill out a couple of these holes. They're gonna need further modification because a 1/2" is not gonna be big enough to fit the washer in there. But I need to at least get the hole a little larger than it is because that's nowhere near big enough for anything really. So this one poses a challenge because on this side, the hole that I drilled was far enough away from this where I could actually fit a drill bit into the pilot hole. It appears as though I may have misaligned the wing a little bit, and this hole is actually just on the side of this factory hole here. So for this one, I don't think it's going to be avoidable, and for this one for that matter, I don't think it's going to be avoidable to have to just cut the metal with some other implement. So I'm going to look around for something that'll actually cut that metal and get back to you. All right, so after looking over a few different options, here's what I settled on. Again, this is going to be for the holes here, well, not this one's already pretty much reamed out. Here, and here. So because of the distance between the lower metal and the upper metal here and here, I think the only thing that's going to work is actually going to be a hole saw. So right here I've got a 1" hole saw with a 1/4" guide bit, and yeah, I'm gonna see if that works. One thing that I was discussing with my dad was that probably what could have been done for at least for these holes, if not this one and this one as well, if we could have had longer hardware, we probably didn't need to drill out the inner metal here. We probably could have just fed drilled a smaller hole and then fed a screw all the way through to screw into the spoiler. I didn't have that foresight, so that's why I'm drilling out these holes through the bottom metal, is so that we can actually get the stock screw in through to reach the top metal. So I'm going to start off with this one here. Again, this is a 1" hole saw with a 1/4" guide bit. So the guide bit is going to go straight through the top hole that we already drilled, which is already a 1/4", and that's going to kind of make sure that our hole saw stays centered here. All right, well, it's not pretty, but it works. I'll get a close-up shot of this. So yeah, you can see here, I've got the 1" hole drilled around. This is obviously plenty room to get the screw in here. Not really the way I wanted it to go, but that was the way we were doing it. This is the only thing that I could think of. So, and the hole is certainly big enough. So, not ideal. If I were you, I would go to Home Depot, get some larger hardware or some longer screws, and instead of drilling out this gigantic hole here, just drill a smaller hole in and thread the bolt through. But again, the hardware that comes with the spoiler is not going to be long enough. If you don't drill out this hole, the hardware that comes with the spoiler is not going to be long enough to actually mount the spoiler. So you would have to find the same thread pattern and get a longer screw. But this seems to be working for my purposes, so I'm going to go ahead and drill out the other holes, and we can get started back on the project here. All right, got a new drill bit in my hole saw. I'm gonna give this another shot. So the problem that I'm having here is this hole doesn't really line up, the bottom side of the hole doesn't really line up with the top side of the hole. I think we're going to have to somehow cut more of this out so that I can line up the hole saw straight with the top hole. Because right now it's not really lined up. So that's what's making it a little more difficult. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to take these shears that I have and just try and cut away a little bit of the metal, just enough to allow us to set the hole saw in there straight. And all this metal is going away anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. So that should be good enough. Let's see how we do. All right, well, that's how that goes. It's got rough edges. I'll try and smooth those out the best I can, but that's where we're at. And we gotta get at this top one here on this side. Yeah, we got quite a bit of metal shavings to clean up. I'm gonna worry about that later. For right now, what I'm gonna do is just try my best to kind of smooth these out. And then after that, I'm gonna hit this with a little bit of touch-up paint, just to kind of maybe make it look a little better, but also prevent any kind of weather damage that might occur. So I'm gonna take again my deburring tool that I had. It's not really meant for this much damage. These aren't really burrs. This is just twisted metal, so it's not really gonna do a lot here. But I'm gonna try it out anyway. It's not going to work for this hole. That I might have to hit with like a file or something, if anything. Honestly, it doesn't look that bad. I might just leave that one. Well, at any rate, there's no question that those holes are going to be big enough to get the washers in, so at least there's that. All right, I'm going to do the same thing over here. Okay, I'm also going to get the insides of these holes again, just to make sure they're nice and smooth. All right, I'm happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and grab my touch-up paint, and this isn't Ford touch-up paint, and it's actually not even the right color, but it is gray. And it's better than nothing. And you're not going to see this much anyway, except for when you lift the trunk. So I'm going to go ahead and mix this up and just dab a little bit of touch-up paint on there. All right, so quick change of course here. Before doing the touch-up paint, we're actually going to grab a Dremel, and we're gonna use a sanding bit to just try and make these a little less hazardous looking. They're quite rough on the edges. The hole saw did its job, but did not leave a clean edge. I didn't really expect it to, but yeah, we're gonna try cleaning those up just a little bit. All right, so I have a Dremel here with a sanding tip on it. I'm just gonna try and clean up these edges a little bit, make them a little less hazardous. Again, not something you have to do, or something that's even ventured to in the instructions. But then again, I think at this point the instructions are probably out the window anyway, so. All right, that's a little cleaner. I'm happy with that. Let's move on to the other side. All right, same thing over here. Well, Dad, that's about it for your sanding bit there. Again, it's not perfect, by far and away not perfect, but good enough. So I'm going to go ahead and cap that off there. All right, and like I said before, I've got just some touch-up paint here. I'm gonna just dab a Q-tip on it. I'm gonna paint up down here and anywhere where my hole saw marred the inside. Just make sure any bare metal surfaces are covered with a little bit of paint. You could probably also use just clear coat or even really clear nail polish if you wanted. But I have gray touch-up paint, so I'm gonna go ahead and use it. It's not doing anything sitting in my closet, so. Yeah. And like I said, it's not the factory color, but being as you'll barely ever see this, I am not too concerned about it. I'm gonna do the same for these center holes. These ones are a little less nasty looking because I used the step bit, which I wish I could have done on the side holes, but there were clearance issues. So, and finally, do the same thing on these two side holes. At some later point in time, after I'm able to actually pick up Ford UJ touch-up paint, maybe I'll sand this out and go over it with factory touch-up paint, but I'm not worried about it right now. So next, I'm going to grab another Q-tip. I'm going to shut the deck lid, and I'm going to do the same thing for the holes. I'm going to do the same thing for the holes on the deck lid. So not too much, just enough to protect the bare metal surfaces. I'm going to give it just a little bit of paint there. All right, I'm gonna call that good enough. I've got a little bit of paint on each of the holes. I'm gonna give this, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes to dry, and then we'll continue on with the installation. I'm gonna go ahead and lift this spoiler up. I'm gonna hand the other side over to my dad, and we're gonna just line this up by eye. It's not terribly hard, and the sticky on the back makes it a little bit easier. Line up the holes just one by one. Make sure they're yours are good. Okay, mine are good on this side. So that's it. The bolt holes are lined up. We're good to go. So I'm gonna lower this a little bit. We're gonna give this a nice little push here. Just make sure the adhesive is stuck, which it feels like it is. And then we're gonna go ahead and start screwing in the screws. So I need like a big fat Phillips head. Fattest one you got. These are big screws. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and thread these guys in. I'm gonna use my other masking tape method to keep the screw on the screwdriver, because unlike fitting the screws into the standoffs where I was able to shake the screws out if I dropped them, if you drop the screw in here, it goes into the trunk lid, and I don't want to do that. Let's just say I don't want to do that. So I'm going to make extra sure that I don't drop these. And there she goes. All right, that's threaded. Now repeat 7 times. And even though the holes on the end ones here are shallower, I'm still using the tape because there is still room for the screw to fall down into the inside of the metal. So I'm not taking any chances here. I want the rest of this install to go a little bit smoother than the first part of the install went. So I'm gonna do it by the book. By my own book, since the instructions included don't really tell you much. The instructions are more like guidelines. What's that from? That's from More Like Guidelines. What movie is that from? So phone died. but that's okay. It wasn't dead for long. So I've got all the screws seated in. I'm just tightening them up by hand. I'm gonna make sure they're all nice and snug. Not too snug though, because that nut that is built into the standoffs, I could foresee that breaking out of the standoff. So I want to get them tight, but you don't want to get them. You don't want to force them. Okay. This one tight. All right. So all the screws are tight now. Just giving them a little extra oomph. We want to squish that butyl tape onto between the wing and the deck lid. So I'm just going to give them an extra little, not even an inch of a turn really, just a little bump. All right, and this is just something I want to do. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, and it's definitely nowhere in the instructions. But I'm going to take some silicone, and I'm just going to put some silicone around the bolt holes here, just as an extra step to make sure that no weather leaks through. All right, so I got the tube of silicone. Get it started there. Oh, that's actually really runny. I kind of expected it to be a little stiffer. It might be old. All right, so I got my tube of silicone. I'm just going to put a little ring of silicone around the washer. It's dry solid, right? It's like very. It says watertight though. So. Okay. It's 4. Okay, I'm happy with that. So that's the silicone done. Again, not a required step, just something I did to make sure that I don't have any water leaking into my trunk. So now we can take a brief look at it. I think it looks pretty good. I'm gonna wait a couple of minutes for the silicone to just set a little bit so that it doesn't drip or anything. And then we're gonna move on to the next step, which is gonna be replacing the inner cover here. So, all right, I've given the silicone a couple minutes to set. Before we put the inner cover back on, I'm going to replace these two plastic end caps. The areas where they go have been cut into significantly, so they're probably not going to really fit the way they should, but I'm going to put them in place anyway. Most of that circle is still intact, so that one snapped in just fine. Let's get this one in. And I think that's about as good as that one's going to get. These might fall out, I don't know. If they do, I'm not too concerned about it, so no big deal. All right, so now I've got the inner liner for the trunk here. I'm going to feed the pull tab back through its little slot. That's how that goes. And then I'm going to line this up the best I can. And I'm going to start putting the push pins back in. Get the center ones done first so it holds the thing in place. Okay. And some of these fell apart. The pin came separate from the bracket, whatever you want to call it, but they just fit right back together. No big deal. Here. Okay, that's that. This is back in. Now all that's left really to do is going to be clean up. So there are a significant number of metal shavings still in the trunk. I'm going to have to vacuum that up. But the wing is on.
All right, that's gonna wrap up our review and install of the MP Concepts GTCS style rear spoiler in gloss black for the 2010 to 2014 Mustangs. And for all things Mustang, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.